We were just saying in our little intro, when we started this thing 2 years ago, we never could have guessed we'd be talking to a former CIA spy who is now the author of a legitimate novel.
Wow. Well, good.
And
well,
it is legit. I mean, I can feel it.
I admit I've been doing so many interviews. I didn't have time to look you guys up.
That's probably a good thing.
5 seconds before, and I was like, "What am I about to do? Who am I about to talk to?" And I'm like, you know what? If I can talk to terrorists, I could probably talk to these guys. I bet
that is a clip right there.
I bet it's probably not that bad. I could probably handle it. It'll be fine.
We could do legit interviews too. We're good. We got this.
Okay, good. It's not just OnlyFans.
It's not. No.
Okay,
no.
Okay.
I mean, for the most part, but no.
Right.
Were we compared to terrorists? Is that?
We're better than, or easier to talk to.
Easier. Okay. All right. Just making sure.
It's pretty even, pretty much.
Welcome, fellow lushes. Come on in, pull up a bar stool, and enjoy some cocktails with Dimples and the Beard.
Hey, fellow lushes, welcome back to another episode of Cocktails with Dimples and the Beard. Another one. Another beautiful lady.
We don't stop.
A fucking former CIA spy turned author on our podcast.
Can you imagine what kind of research she did on us?
Yeah, right? She's not a very good CIA agent. Just kidding, Brittany Butler.
No, she's coming on as we're going to pound on our door. She'll be like, guys, FYI, I wanted this on camera. Answer the door. They're going to knock it down.
Arrest us for it. Just ate an edible.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not legal here, but
it's still, you'll find something.
Yeah. Who would have thought 2 years ago when we started this thing that we would be interviewing a former CIA spy who has written a legitimate novel, spy novel.
Just come out, check it out. But
Jesus Christ.
We'll get into inspiration and all that stuff for that. But in the meantime, before you do that, please subscribe. Add a comment. That's what we appreciate. That does a lot for us.
What should they call us this time?
Ass hats.
All right. I like ass hats.
Whatever you want.
Red Foreman in the house.
How about it's stupid spies? We're interviewing Syndicate Spies. We can be a stupid spies.
What's the Chevy Chase? What's the
Fletch?
No. What was it? It has spy in the title.
Spies Like Us.
Spies Like Us. There you go.
We would be spies like us.
Who co-stars in Spies Like Us?
Say it again.
Who co-stars? Is it Chevy Chase?
Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd. Okay. All right. Which one of us is Chase and which one is Aykroyd? I'm Chase because he's meaner in real life. So
he's an asshole.
Right, in life. Yeah, I would definitely be Chevy Chase. So
yes.
I assume Dan Aykroyd's got to be a nice guy in real life, isn't he?
Guy. Yeah.
He's got to be. He seems like the jolliest of jolly guys.
He does seem like just a good dude.
Yeah. We should have him on. We could talk about his vodka that we drank that one time. He's the Skullhead vodka, right?
Yeah, it is. It's one of the greatest vodkas I've ever tasted, Dan Aykroyd.
All right. I still got the skull sitting in my house. My daughter had a play date the other day, and the girl that came over is like, "What is that?" She's like, "Yeah, my dad's a little weird." The other day, I'm listening to her. She's talking to one of her friends on the phone, and she's like, she's telling her friend, she's like, "Yeah, my dad has a podcast." And then in her next breath, she's like, "It's not like he's famous or anything." So,
to be fair, I've heard stories of
we're not famous.
Have
you been recognized yet by a stranger?
Oh, yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
Any chance? I haven't yet. I assume someday somebody will be like, "Oh, you're that guy."
Absolutely.
Did you see our
at the bar once in a while?
Yeah. By strangers. That's cool.
Yeah, complete strangers.
Cool. I reached out to our local, our state hero when it comes to comedy and all things comedy, good old Manitowoc Minute Charlie.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
I reached out to him, asked him if he would come on.
And he said, obviously.
He said he'll come on. So if you're hearing this, Charlie, you said you'd come on, or somebody in your
wheelhouse
team
they agreed
said you'd come on. But
all right, well, let's come on. Let's go. Again, let's never leave a spy waiting.
A pretty spy, beautiful spy. It's the same line every time. Just do your line.
Leave a pretty lady waiting.
Thank you. Without further ado,
Trying to be classy for her.
former CIA spy,
One time. Can we be classy
and
once?
author of the Syndicate Spy,
Once.
Brittany Butler.
Guess what?
Hello.
Hi.
Well,
How are
hello.
you?
We
How's
are
it going?
we're very good. How you doing tonight?
Good, good.
Thank you so much for joining us. We were just saying in our little intro when we started this thing 2 years ago, we never could have guessed we'd be talking to a former CIA spy who is now the author of a legitimate novel.
Wow. Well, good.
And
Well,
it is
yeah,
legit. I mean, I can feel
I
it.
admit I've been doing so many interviews. I didn't have time to like look you guys up
That's probably a
until,
good thing.
like 5 seconds before, and I was like, what am I about to do? Like, who am I about to talk to? And I'm like, you know what? If I can talk to terrorists, I could probably talk to these guys. I bet it's
that
not
is a
that
clip
bad.
right there.
I bet
love
it's
it.
probably not that bad. I could probably handle it. It'll be fine.
We could do legit interviews too. We're good. We got this.
Okay, good. It's not just OnlyFans.
It's not. No,
Okay,
no.
okay.
I mean, for the most part, but no,
Right.
Right.
Were we compared to terrorists? Is that
we're better than we're easier to talk to.
Easier. Okay. All right. Just making
It's,
sure.
it's pretty even, pretty much.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, we'll see how you feel at the end.
Okay, yeah.
How about
I'll
that?
give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm coming in to this with an open mind. I left my kids' baseball game early and poured myself a glass of wine to get ready.
Sauvignon Blanc.
Sauvignon Blanc.
There
Yes.
you go.
We can be CIA agents too.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Good. Cheers.
Cheers to you. Thank you for joining us, Brittany Butler. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
Welcome to the
Thanks for having me.
interrogation.
Let's do it.
I'm
out of practice. Let's do it. Yeah.
I read like the last 130 pages yesterday. I couldn't put it down.
Wait, what? You skipped all the way to the end?
No.
Oh,
You did.
I was to page like 170 coming into yesterday.
Good.
I read the last 130 because the action really picks up.
It does, yeah.
It is, you can't put it down.
It's nonstop. Yeah.
Good. Yay. I'm so glad that you felt that way.
Yes, absolutely.
And it appears that we can't really talk about the last 150 pages.
No.
That's going to be the.
No, yeah, it's a little twisty, right? You're
It's
like, there's a couple of surprises there.
There's a couple. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. When I was reading the book jacket, and it said something about a betrayal. Of course, as you read a book, you're always kind of like, who is it? I was completely floored by what ended up happening. So
that's what I want.
It was a great twist. Yes.
Good. I'm gonna share a secret with you. I did not write the ending until a couple weeks before it went to press because I just could not get the right ending. I just like had such a hard time. It's hard when you're writing a book that's like in a series because you want to like wrap things up, but then also leave people on a cliffhanger. Right. And yeah, I just like came up with this like pretty recently. So
that's cool to know.
Yeah. So even I didn't see it coming.
Wow.
Even better.
All right.
So when you're in that dilemma, who do you have to turn to help you with that?
Editors, really good editors. Yeah. Just kind of like floating ideas back and forth and like, hey, what about this? What about that? And that was one of the ideas I had. And she was like, oh, I love it. Do it.
Yeah.
So,
it's perfect.
So under the crunch time. So do you work better under pressure?
Yes, definitely.
Well, that's what I said.
Similar to my old job, right? It's like if I have too much time on my hands, I'm like, what do I do? Like, I don't know even where to start. But if it's like, and now my current pressure is I got to pick up the kids from school. So I have to wrap up my writing, but somehow like the writing gets better because I like get serious. I stop fucking around and I like, zone in. So it's the same thing at work.
Yeah. And
if
I totally
like somebody standing over me as I'm like trying to do stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a lot better.
I totally understand it because that's why this was like one of the first ones that I felt like I had homework to do before we did. And that's what I am better under pressure as well. So I put it off and put it off and put it off. And I was finally, I got to read this. I got to finish reading this book.
You need to finish.
Read the book. Well, I love that you read the book. I've definitely done interviews where they haven't had a chance to read the book yet.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's harder to do those. Then they just want to know about CIA,
Right.
But which is
we want to know all of it.
Yeah, we want to tap into both.
I'm happy to talk about all of it, but it's nice to be able to talk about the book too, since that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I got the finished Friday night.
Yeah, and thank
Oh,
you
good.
to you and your team for sending us an advanced copy so we could get into it. That was
absolutely. Yeah. My publicist is great. She's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
So let's start at the beginning. How did you end up in the CIA? Where did that come from?
Yeah. So I did an internship at the American Embassy in Paris in 2004 and was involved in some passport fraud cases. So I worked in the consulate section. And, part of that job there is to basically like run what we call name traces. So like you're doing research on whoever's trying to get into the country, people who apply for visas or passports or whatever. And again, this is 2004. So it's like pretty soon after 9/11. So we're really sensitive about, no guys with terrorist affiliations and all that kind of stuff. And I had some knowledge of Arabic naming conventions, and I identified somebody who had terrorist connections that they would not have identified otherwise. And so they flagged that to like basically the seniors at the State Department, and then the CIA guys that are working undercover at the embassy got wind of it, and they came and approached me and they're like, hey, have you ever thought about applying to the CIA? And I was like, no, absolutely not. I haven't. And they're like, we think you should do it. So I did. And I got recruited out of college to be a case officer, which is basically like the person who, like handles the spies overseas, and got trained up and everything. But I decided in the end that I wanted to do kind of like a hybrid position where I was more like TDYing, temporary duty assignments, like for short-term operations, not like long stints, like 2 years at a time.
Okay.
And I picked that too because I really loved counterterrorism operations where like we were focused in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iraq, and like those are real shitholes, right? So I didn't want to go there for a long time. So I could go, and I could go for like a couple weeks at a time, and I could handle that. But I thought, it'd probably be a little too much to do the PCS tour, the 2-year tour.
Sure.
So, so I loved my job as a targeting officer, basically like, leading operations from Langley, but then like TDYing to the field and like supporting those operations in person.
So CIA was not on your radar when you were younger at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. I wanted to be a foreign service officer, which is why I applied to this internship at the U.S. State Department. I thought that would be like a really cool gig. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got wrapped up. But there's a lot of like overlap between state and CIA in the sense that CIA officers use State Department, and this is a well-known fact, as their cover for a lot of things. And so, when you're doing operations abroad, like you need to have some kind of like cover story. So, because you can't just like be like, I'm a CIA, And so I knew how State Department worked. I knew, how the consulate section works. So I could talk to that. If people ask me questions about, well, what exactly do you do at the embassy? Like I could really bullshit it because I had done the job before.
Yeah. So go ahead.
In your job with the passports coming in, did you look at passports going out as well?
Oh, yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah. So the people who went to the embassy to basically apply for a visa to get into the country or apply for a passport, like a US passport, but they've been living in France for a long time, that like I would do name traces on those guys. But that was the State Department gig. That wasn't the CIA gig. That was like way early in my career.
I get that. I'm just saying about like Americans trying to go out that some triggered something. Did anybody watch those guys going out that maybe they had some connections?
Americans coming from France. So this was in France. So Americans coming from France.
Well, leaving the USA to go out and try to catch them the opposite way. I don't
know. No. So CIA is like pretty specific in their mission in that we're focused internationally. So we're only focused on foreigners. Really. I mean, like we don't target US people. We don't. Sure. Like it just if there's some kind of US nexus or connection, FBI takes over.
Okay.
So if there's some guy who has a terrorist affiliation, send that to FBI and they handle it. Gotcha. Because I don't have the authorities. All my authorities are overseas.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So what's it like being a female in a pretty male dominated world like the CIA? Do you deal with were you kind of embraced right away, or do you have to earn your,
You
you
gotta
know.
really prove yourself. Yeah. I mean, you really do. I mean, especially like when I would go out, TDY, like go to the war zones and stuff. I had to really prove myself to both my colleagues and to whatever detainee or source where I'm debriefing, right? So like these guys, I walk in the room with like blonde hair and green eyes, and they're like, what the hell's going on here? They've never even met an American woman before.
Right.
And their perspective of female intelligence officers is what they see on TV and movies, right? So they're used to somebody in like fishnet stockings and a low cut shirt. And are you here to have sex with me, basically? And it's like, no, dude, I'm here to like get information from you.
Yeah.
And if you have to really establish your authority pretty quick in those situations, especially also in a culture where they don't see women as their equal, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like they wouldn't even like look me in the eye. So I had to work really hard to make sure that they understood that I was there. I meant business. I was the expert. As a targeting officer, I was also an expert on the terrorist network. So wherever I was like deploying and supporting operations, I was an expert on the guy that we're approaching for a potential recruitment operation, but then also like what his access is to the terrorist network and how it functions and everything. And I often would kind of catch these guys off guard because I would know so much about them.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do my research and I would come prepared to the meeting. And so I'd come in there and I'd be like, hey, I remember your mom used to call you when you were a little boy. And I know who your best friend was when you were 7 and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh shit, you know everything. So it's like, you're establishing yourself as you can't bullshit me.
Yeah.
I know what you know, and you're not leaving this room until you tell me, And so, yeah, that was difficult because I would, I'd have to establish my authority. And sometimes my male colleagues would be like, she's just such a bitch. Like this woman is a bitch. But it's like, if I wasn't a bitch, they wouldn't listen to me. They wouldn't, you have to be that way kind of to be taken seriously. And another thing too, like if, whenever I deployed overseas, especially to the war zones, people were fucking each other all the time, right? So they're like, the embassies, the bases, like you're away from your family, your spouse, whatever. And so there's all sorts of stuff going on. And, I had to right away, establish, like, I'm not here to do that. Like, I'm here to do a job. I'm here to be taken seriously. And if you were the girl who TDY'd and started sleeping around with all the special forces guys, no one's going to take you seriously in any of your work. So yeah, you definitely have to like overcome some of those, both from your American colleagues, but then also, the guys that we're trying to recruit or trying to debrief and all that. So it was tough, but
it's funny how you as a female get characterized as a bitch, but a guy who's acting the same way is just, he's doing his job. He's a hard ass. He's doing
right. Yeah. I mean, it would be the same question. So like, I remember one operation, I was in Iraq and I was asking the same type of questions that my male colleague was. And I got the best information back from this detainee. He basically spilled the beans and it was, lauded as a successful operation. Well, when I got back to Langley, my bosses at the time were like, dude, you were way too aggressive with that detainee. And I'm like, what? I asked the same questions that the dude did. Like,
right.
So that was really frustrating because, yeah, you're definitely, you're looked at differently and you have to work a lot harder. I think.
Can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a counterpart I work with and everybody says when she would come in, she's a bitch. And I would always say, yeah, she's a bitch. But if it was a dude, they would just say he's just good at his job. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. And it's so true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. But I worked with a lot of great guys too that were like, yes, ma'am, we're gonna do it. Like they had no problem listening. And it's interesting because I think the insecure guys were the ones that like want to put me in my place. The guys who didn't do well on assignment and like were stuck back at headquarters because frankly they sucked at their job. Those were the ones that were like intimidated by me. The special forces guys, the special activities division is, I don't know if you know a lot about it, if you read a lot of, books and stuff, there's been a lot out since the UBL operation about special activities division, but basically they're like the guys on the ground. They're the the former special forces guys. They're going out on military raids. They're running sources. So they're doing like real CIA operations, but like they are, they're trained. They're trained to go into a house and drag somebody out. So those guys were the best to work with because they were confident. They didn't need to prove themselves to anybody. They didn't act like their shit didn't stink. I didn't have to feed their ego to get them to work with me.
Right.
They just were like ready to go get bad guys.
Yeah.
So,
good.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it just depended, on who I was like working with.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to ask to be reassigned with someone that just could not get over that you're a woman?
No, it was another woman that acted that way, honestly. It was another woman that,
Insecure.
What's that?
She must have been insecure.
She was. I was really young when I joined the CIA, and she was an older lady, like whatever. I'm an older lady now, whatever. But she was really like mean to the younger women that worked in the department and would kind of comment on our outfits a lot, like what we would wear. And we weren't wearing anything crazy, but we weren't dressing like, in muumuus, like we were 95, like we were young 20-year-olds, like wearing pencil skirts and blouses and stuff. And she would make comments constantly, like trying to make us feel uncomfortable. And I remember like the first day I was on the job, she brought me into her office and she was like, I just don't understand what you're doing here. And I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And she was like, well, you didn't go to an Ivy League school. I'm like, yeah, but I went to college. Like I went to a good university and like got a good degree and I, did really well. And she's like, well, you're not the caliber that they usually recruit.
She was obviously very threatened.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I've come to find out she didn't go to an Ivy League school. So like, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
He was just trying to throw me off my game,
Well, it doesn't sound like you let her though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, when you're young in any kind of job, you feel a little bit like, especially something like CIA. And I still talk to people that are still there and they still can't believe they work there. You're in this constant, like, you have to pinch yourself. You're like, am I really working here? Am I really doing this? Are they really giving me this gun? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing all this stuff. So, but I do also think that like humility goes a long way in intelligence operations. The minute you start to get too cocky or too sure of yourself, you miss things.
Sure.
That's when accidents happen, when
Sure.
you feel like, but if you're always like humble and you're like, I need to do my research here. I need to make sure everyone's safe. That's the people you want to work with.
Yeah.
You don't want to work with like the guy who thinks he knows everything or the girl who thinks she knows everything.
So to me, it seems like you move very fast within 9 years. That seems like a short time to be within the CIA and get to where you were. Is that accurate or no?
To get where I was. What do you mean? Like my position?
Yeah, just to get involved so quickly. Seems like.
Yeah. So there's not like a big ramp up. They throw you in right away. There's not like a
sink or swim.
They don't like, let's ease into this. Let's see how you do. It's like, let's throw you to the piranhas and you'll be out of here. Like we'll eat you alive if you don't survive. And that during training, right? So like I went to training at the farm and of course, like people dropped out. People couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle the stress of it, or they weren't good at it. And so that's, one way that they weeded people out. But no, they threw us right into counterterrorism, like right away. And that's what they needed. This is right after 9/11. Like
right. Especially at that time.
That's true.
Yeah. They hired people to prevent the next 9/11. So like, we're all, super young, and that's what they want. They want someone who's young that they can shape, that they can mold into what they want. So like me now as an almost 40-year-old woman, I'd be like questioning a lot of stuff, right? Because I have life experience. I've lived out there. I know, but as a 23-year-old, I was like, oh, sure. Like send me in. Let's do it. All right. We're going to Baghdad. Like, cool. Let's go. You have no fear. You're kind of stupid in that sense. Cause you're just like, and then you have children and then you get scared. You're like, I don't want to leave my kids. And like things change.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they like to get you when you're young and, put you in dangerous assignments before you have kids.
Or you could think about it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And be like, I don't know if I want to do this. No, you just
And
go.
you're already over there. Do I really want to do it? But I'm here.
How
Yeah,
often?
I'm here already. Well, it was like a very like normal thing, right? So like in my vault in Langley where I worked, like people were coming in and out all the time. Like, oh, I'm going to Kabul. I'm going to Baghdad today. So like he was my fiance at the time and he's my husband now. I would be like, okay, well, so tomorrow night, I'm gonna hop on the air bridge. So the air bridge was like our private plane to go to Baghdad. They need me for some debriefings. And he was like, wait, hold on. Wait, where are you going? Like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's like not a big deal. Like, I'll be back by the weekend. Like, we can still go out clubbing and not
Holy cow.
And he's like, what? Yeah. So, but in that world, it's just normal. It was just normal. It's just like what we did. And we didn't
Was it
think
normal to be at short notice that you're leaving tomorrow or you're leaving tonight?
Oh, yeah. Because they would wrap up a dude or we'd have an opportunity with the source and like,
You gotta go now. Yeah.
Yeah, we need you to go out and support this.
Was there any place that you went that you're like, ooh, I'm scared to go there? Or every place? Like
No,
me.
I mean, honestly, I was not scared a whole lot. I mean, so you have to remember during this time, we controlled Iraq, we controlled Afghanistan. So I'm going in there and I've got 100 Americans around me,
Sure.
like, and we're all armed and, especially at CIA, like we had like bodyguards everywhere we went. So we had like full GRS details. So I was like, bring it. Like, we're good. I mean, we felt fine.
Okay.
It was in the non-war zones, honestly, like when I was in other Middle Eastern countries where we didn't have a strong military presence, that I felt more uncomfortable, like
Yeah. That makes sense.
I would think so.
Do you find situations where your morals are tested when you're in that field? Do you ever feel like you had to cross the line when you're interrogating people, or even in your home life? Did you find yourself having to lie to your fiance or your husband about what you were really doing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you get so used to in that line of work talking around things to people who don't, that aren't read in, right? Like they don't have security clearance. So Matt, my husband, like he just kind of knew not to push me for information. And and living in DC too. I don't where are you guys located? What city are you in?
We're in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Oh, near Green Bay.
Okay, cool. In DC, like everybody does something like spooky, I feel like a lot of people like they do DOD work or intelligence or FBI or whatever. And so it's just like not as big of a deal, I feel like. And then once I left Washington, like it was amazing because people are like, oh my gosh, you worked at CIA. That's so cool. And I'm like, really? I didn't think about it like that. There's a ton of people who work for CIA.
Yeah, it's DC. Everybody in DC has a secret, right?
Oh yeah, everybody has like a clearance and they just know not to push for information, whatever. I have a funny story actually. So when my husband and I were dating, we had this really morbid tradition at CIA where we would celebrate it was called the 12 Raids of Christmas. And we would celebrate an operation that we were a part of, right? So let's say we got bad guy X. Well, we were responsible for if they were our target, right? So I was a targeter. If that was my target and we got him that year, I had to do some kind of baked good to celebrate the fact that we nabbed him, right? So I had this sheet cake drawn, like, so I went to Harris Teeter. This guy was on, oh my gosh, not only FBI's most wanted, but he was also Interpol's most wanted. So his picture was everywhere, like unclassified. So I printed out a picture of him, took it to Harris Teeter and had them like scan it on a cake. And I put it in my refrigerator that night because the party was in the morning. And my husband like goes in the refrigerator, gets some water in the middle of the night. And he's like, who is this fucking dude on the cake? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a guy that we're, anyway, so, but he just knew not to push me for information, but that was like kind of how he found out like what I did for a living.
That's a fine line.
I'm assuming it wasn't a pretty picture on the cake.
Well, it was an unclassified. So I didn't have like, I mean, there was definitely some baked goods that showed some not pretty things with like red icing and stuff.
Sure. Nice.
But sorry, I digress. But to answer your question, yeah, it is really hard to look at these people in the face and say, you can trust me. I'm going to take care of you if something happens. I mean, first of all, your primary job in running a source is to make sure they don't get caught, right? So you're constantly teaching them things to make sure they don't get nabbed.
Sure.
But sometimes it's just not, you can't prevent it. And it's very difficult to look at them and say, yeah, we'll protect you, we'll protect your family, everything's going to be fine. And then something happens like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and we totally pull out and we leave all these poor guys and girls that have helped us just, in horrible
for themselves. Yeah.
So it's very hard. I mean, that was really hard. I know for myself, I know for a lot of people in the military, that worked in Afghanistan, to see what's happened to that country and to see a lot of the partnerships that we built. Like, we would have never been able to do what we did against Al-Qaeda if the Afghans didn't work with us to, take them down. And so it's very heart-wrenching. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about working within the Afghan refugee community here in South Carolina, because a lot of these people, like, they risk their lives. A lot of the women, like, their husbands are still there. Some of them have already been killed by the Taliban, about to be killed by the Taliban. And it's all for helping America. And we just left. Yeah. So it's just, that is a moral dilemma for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you build that up again? That's going to take years if they ever needed to. Yeah.
Right. Well, and then also it's how are we going to get them to work with us?
Right.
I mean, they know we just left them high and dry.
Yeah, we don't seem very trustworthy anymore after that.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was the right decision to leave, but executed really poorly. And I think that maybe leaving a stronger contingent there would have been smart.
Sure.
But then you look at what's going on in the rest of the world, and it's like, well, I don't know if we were gearing up for World War III. I don't know what's happening.
Do you
well, there goes my next question. What's the intel about?
Yes. Do I need to start digging a bunker?
Yeah.
I know, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. What's funny is because when I first started working at CIA, all these old dudes that worked with me, they were retirees that came back as contractors. And they would talk about the good old days of the Cold War and all the crazy shit they did. And I'd be like, listen, geezers, that's the old world. We're not in that anymore.
Yeah.
Now I'm God, I really wish I could pick their brain about what they think about what's going on with Russia and Ukraine and China and everything, because it's kind of coming full circle. Now we're coming back to that kind of,
Well, tell me, I got to ask you a question way off, and tell me if I'm a complete idiot, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I heard this on a podcast, and I'm curious about your opinion on this.
Can I answer if you're an idiot?
I am an idiot, but I heard somebody talking about how Russia controls 3/4 of the world's fertilizer collection, and that there's the reality of a food shortage in the States is a real thing that people should be concerned about.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's news to me.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't know that. But here's the thing about CIA. You don't know everything about everything,
sure,
right?
Of course.
So I had one little, one job to know everything about this one thing. Right. And I don't get to know everything about what's going on in China operations or Russia operations.
Right.
I could tell you all about the Taliban, but I don't know what's going on over there. Yeah. And they do that because, if you get picked up and you start spilling the beans, they want you to not be able to completely.
Yeah, you don't want to know everything.
Mess up everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're the thumb drive that has every secret that we've ever had. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So it's very compartmentalized. That you have to have special clearances to read into each program.
Sure.
Okay.
You have to have a need to know.
So why did you get out of the CIA?
There you go.
I was so burnt out, to be honest, like so burnt out. I had worked like, I mean, I went through it. Like I did Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and I tried to do like more of like the traditional FI collection, so foreign intelligence collection work, where it's like more of like a long-term thing operation where you're looking at hard target areas like China or Russia or North Korea, and you're looking for penetrations, but and by that I mean like sources of the net of the foreign government or terrorist network. You're working on that for years. And that pace of operations was so much slower that I just didn't have the patience for it after counterterrorism operations. Like it was
Right.
kind of like a drug. And I was like, man, like I knew, like I was like, hey, here's this operational lead, here's the guy, go get him here, blah, blah, blah. And so it's kind of like addictive. And so it's hard to transition to something more long-term.
Sure. You get burnt out from all the adrenaline of the fast-paced thing, but then the slower paced thing doesn't live up to it. So
yeah, like I tried to do that and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going back to counterterrorism. So yeah, my last assignment was in Afghanistan, Pakistan division. And I had my second child then. And it just two of my colleagues died in the coast bombings. I don't know if you know of it's in Afghanistan, there was a suicide bomber that posed as a source.
okay.
And he drove up to the base. They didn't do a thorough pat down when he was going through security. And he blew up 7 CIA officers. And I worked with 2 of them.
Okay. So I
Sorry
recognize
about that.
little story from the book.
Yes.
Yep. So I did weave that in there on purpose.
Yeah.
So my colleague I worked with, he had a little girl at the time, and he and I worked together in Jordan, and he was like, Brittany, I looked up to him so much. Like he was an amazing case officer, and I was pretty new to the game. And I'm like, gosh, like you got to teach me how you do this, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, don't look up to me. Like I'm a horrible father. I'm a horrible husband. Like, and that's what really matters. And like, if you get the opportunity to leave, you should do it because it'll just suck the life out of you. And I really did feel like that toward the end of my time there. I was really sick. I was pregnant again. I was just like totally drained. I was just, it did. It sucked the life out of me.
I can't imagine going to work where your life is in danger. I mean, probably not every day, but a lot of days. When you know you have children and a husband at home, it's got to be just a crazy difficult thing to do.
It's got to pull on you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the chief of base at that base in Afghanistan, where everyone perished, she had 3 children, like young kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is like a real deal thing. And it just didn't hit. It sounds ridiculous because I just should have known, I guess, like this is dangerous work. Hello. But it took that happening to really hit home.
Sure.
And I was like, I got to really, reevaluate some stuff.
Was it a struggle to leave, just knowing how much good you did behind the scenes?
I don't know if you ever feel like you do enough in that job. I feel like you constantly, or at least me, I always felt like there's more, I could do more. Like even watching everything that's happened with Afghanistan, like, God, if I just would have stayed there for a few more years, like maybe I could have made more of a difference, or maybe it would be different. So I think I could have stayed there for 40 years and still felt that way, that there was unfinished business, or that you didn't do enough. And I think, for each person, it's different. I personally just couldn't juggle like being the kind of mom I wanted to be and doing that job.
Yeah.
And, people who are able to is like awesome. And I'm so much respect for them, but I just know that I personally couldn't do both.
Sure.
So
there was a book in mind before you left?
No, not at all. Not at all. I started working for an organization called Women for Afghan Women. So like I said, I worked Afghanistan, Pakistan, and I saw the way the Taliban treated women, and I was just really pissed off, and I wanted to do something about it when I left. And so I started doing volunteer work, and a lot of the women I worked with there, I was just amazed by how resilient they were and powerful, and they were awesome. So I decided to I wanted to write a book, showcasing a really powerful Arab woman and dispelling some of the crap that's out there about what female spies are like. I wanted to write a really strong female spy who had depth and character and was interesting and had sex, but sex with substance. I just wanted to kind of portray them how they really are. And we're not these women who just sell our bodies to get information. We have brains and tradecraft and stuff.
For sure. Yeah. I was so captivated by this because I describe your book as a book for people who enjoy a James Patterson, but they want a little more intelligence, because James Patterson is a really easy, simple kind of read. You can, you bust it out on the beach. You don't even have to, this, you got to be involved. You might even want to pad a paper. And I have to ask you, how in the hell do you keep all the fucking names straight?
Oh gosh, I'm just
you had to have taken a
used to
class
them.
at the CIA.
I know, I'm so used to them. I don't know. It's funny. I'll meet Veronica or Samantha, and I'm I can't remember their names at all. But you give me a Mohammed Aziz Abdul Baghdadi, and I'm oh, I remember it forever. I do not know.
Wow.
I think I was just conditioned, learning their names and everything.
But even that, then on top of that, how do the correlation and how the name goes with how they're related to this person and this person, because you talk in the book about the family name and the father's name, and can you go over that a little bit, how it all goes together?
Yeah, sure. So they go by things called kunyas sometimes. When they have their first child, they'll go by an honorific or a kunya. And Abu means father of. And so say a guy's name is Abu Muhammad, father of Muhammad, which is probably his firstborn son.
Okay.
Abu Muhammad al-Baghdadi would be, I'm from Baghdad and I'm the father of Muhammad. So, but that's not their real name, right? That's a kunya.
Oh.
So the real name does not have Abu in it. The real name is Abdulaziz is a true name.
Okay.
So
wow.
A lot of people don't know that. And so it makes hunting terrorists really confusing, right? Because they don't go by their true name. And so half of my job, whenever I was there, was, tracking down their true identity, right? Because it's really hard to know if you nab the right guy. There's a lot of Abu Muhammads out there.
I don't want to laugh at it, but common folks like us, you're right. We're that's amazing.
How do you know?
To keep it straight. Yeah.
And we had some legitimate problems with the terrorist watch list for that reason, because so I worked on the terrorist watch list for a while, and they would tell you if there's bomb and Muhammad in the same intel report, to highlight it, and that could qualify as a potential reason to go on the terrorist watch list. So there's a lot of, that's why we frankly wrapped up the wrong guys a lot of times.
Sure.
Okay.
Because we didn't really get that right. So by the time I got there, we were doing it right. And so they're you got to learn that Arabic naming conventions and all that.
I feel like you need a master degree for that.
It's a lot easier than you think. It really is.
Yeah, I suppose it's like any language. Once you start speaking, it's like speaking a foreign language almost. And once you start to speak it. So on that same line, what is the term that Graham calls Juliet, the term of affection?
Oh yeah, muharib.
Muharib. Okay. What is the meaning of that?
That means warrior.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah. And he does. Yeah. Now that you say it, he does say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So was that a key part? What came first, the story or naming your character to say, now I'm going to write about Juliet?
The story, because she's been called lots of different things. She used to be called Colette in an earlier version. I've called her many different things. The story has really evolved over time, and the story I wanted to tell. So when I first started writing, I didn't know how to write. And so it was kind of practice just to start, excuse me, just get a draft out on paper and see and figure out what my style is and how I like to structure things. And initially I didn't do any structuring, no outlining, and just wrote. and
Okay.
it was a disaster. Right? It was like I was writing about space. I love Star Wars, so I was like kind of trying to write this new like Star Wars thing, and like I was bringing in spying and all this stuff. And so I had this really smart editor at Random House, and she was like, "Why don't you write about what you know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, spy stuff. Why don't you just stick with that and don't overcomplicate?" Because I think I was trying to do too many things. And she was right. I
Yeah.
just needed to like hone in on my story and outline is key. Because in writing novels, it's difficult because your structure, you have to structure the characters and everything. They have to kind of have this character arc where they go through some kind of development.
Right.
And then it has to mirror with the plot and the climax and everything. It's involved.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. But there said to have been something there for them to say, yeah, it's a lot. It's a mess. We still want to sign you.
Yeah. I guess I'm a good writer. That's what
And I do think a lot of people assume that when they're reading a novel that the author just sat down and started typing and that's what came out,
No,
But
I mean, I think I compare it to intel operations because like you see on movies and TV shows, like it's just like James Bond, just one guy or one girl like saving the world. While in reality at CIA, it's like this whole group of committed people who all have their specialty. You've got one guy who's like knows the tech gear and one guy who knows everything about the terrain, the geospatial analyst. You've got a SIGINT analyst who understands, the phones and the emails and how to intercept all that. And they're all working together to achieve something. Same thing with writing a book.
Yeah.
You've got a really great editor. You've got a really good copy editor. You've got a person with the graphics a lot goes into it it's definitely not just sitting down and
did you have any sort of writing education in your past, or had you done any other kind of writing, or
no
That's awesome.
No,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Well, I mean, I wrote for the government, right? So how we write is like these cables. It's called cable traffic, is how we communicate with our stations and bases abroad. And I knew I was a good cable writer, but I didn't know I would be good at like writing novels or anything until I tried.
So how long did the process take from the day you had the idea until the day you handed in the final draft?
About 6 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, a long time. So you have to really love your story to like, you got to really be in love with your characters. You got to like be in love with the whole world that you've created, because otherwise it's like a real chore. And that comes through, I think, in the writing. Like,
for sure.
If somebody's not in their story, like totally into it, like you're like, you put the book down.
Yeah. So how much of Juliet is Brittany?
Well, there's a lot of what I went through. So you picked up on the fact that post-base, bombing situation. So a lot of like, I think for me, writing is therapeutic. So like it helps me process a lot of what I encountered when I was at the CIA that maybe I couldn't talk about or write about. And so through these characters, I'm able to kind of channel a lot of that. And so, yeah, I would say Juliet, she's experiencing a lot of the same feelings that accompanied the operations I was on, but I'm not divulging what operations those were, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Was there any part of the book that you wrote and somebody said, "No, you can't say that. You got to change the way you say that because it reveals too much"?
No. I'm pretty good about writing around it. I have to go. So anytime you work at CIA and you go out and you write something, you have to go through the CIA's publication review board, or you're supposed to. And I went through that process and I was fine. Foreign policy actually asked me to do an interview with them where I explained one operation that I was a part of, and I had to get it approved by CIA before I talked about the operation. And I told them, I said, I really don't think they're going to approve this. I really don't. And they're like, just try, just push it, So I sent it to them and they redacted the whole thing. And so basically, like, I could get on the show. I was like, I can't do this interview, guys. Like, I'm going to get on the show and say, I was part of getting some bad guy, the end. Like, I can't. So, yeah. It just depends. I've had a lot of friends that have written nonfiction books, and they're kind of tell-alls about their experiences at CIA.
Right.
And they have a much more difficult time. But
I would imagine, yeah.
Because I'm a fiction writer, I think it was a lot easier.
Sure. Now I got to know about some of the idiosyncrasies of the character. The scene where they're in the sewers and Juliet appears to be afraid of like the sound of dripping. I thought we were going to get more of that later because it's like, is that something with you?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I'm surprised you like picked up on that. I'm gonna probably explain that in the next book.
It reminded me a lot of like when you're reading, I don't know if you read James Patterson at all, but like the Alex Cross novels and how they constantly go back to Alex Cross being claustrophobic.
Okay.
I kind of felt that there was something there
Well,
that
I'm
was
gonna
going
like write that down to explain that in the next book because so I wanted to make sure that Graham wasn't super one-dimensional. And so I think at that time in my writing, I kind of shifted to like, I needed more backstory for Graham.
Sure.
And so that's when like the whole, like, he's afraid of fire thing came out.
Yep.
Because, what happened to his family. And so, but I'll explain that in the next book. Stay tuned.
All right.
Well, that goes into the thing. There's going to be a series, correct?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I'm really hoping to write more books. And I mean, I'm halfway through the next one. So
okay, I was just gonna say, have you started to? But you're halfway through. There you go.
Halfway through it. Yep. I mean, it's crap right now, but it'll get better. I have to, rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. So
out of 9 years in the service, how many books do you think you have in you?
Oh goodness. I mean, I could write. I love to write. So as long as I'm making money doing it, I'll just keep going. I'll probably keep going even if I don't make any money.
Right.
I just love it so much.
If you love doing it, like us doing this thing, you do it for free.
Yeah, I'm pretty much doing it for free right now. We'll see how much my sales report is when it comes in, but so far, yeah, it's just a pleasure to be able to do it, to have your work out there. I mean, you guys, like your work is out there, your voice is out there. It's like real. I feel really grateful to have that opportunity.
For sure.
So, but you have to get out of your comfort zone. I think that's been really hard for me, living this very private life where I couldn't tell anyone anything. And, I had to be very secretive. And now I'm like, I worked at the CIA and here's my book. Go buy it.
They know now, don't they?
They know now. No secret there.
So all the characters in the book, are they based on people that you worked with? Or did you have to combine a few people?
Yeah. So Mariam Al-Sad is definitely based upon two different women, an Afghan woman I worked with at that human rights organization I talked about, and then also Princess Amira Al-Tawil, who she married into the Saudi royal family. She since has left, but she was very outspoken. Y'all should look her up. I mean, she's the most drop-dead gorgeous woman I've ever seen in my life. But she spoke out against the Saudi regime's, banning of women driving. And she was one of the first people to, like, within the Saudi royal family to ever speak out against anything the Saudi, males did. So I created Mariam kind of based on her loosely and just kind of her background.
That's got to be a scary thing to do in that world, to speak out against that male dominated world. I just can't.
I can't either.
Yeah. So go ahead.
In that sense, you tell her, hey, this is loosely based off you.
Well, I don't know her personally. I mean, she's like really famous. She's
okay. I thought maybe you'd met her, but
no. I wish. I would love to. Yeah. I would love to one day. But yeah, no, I admire her work. I admire what she did.
Yeah.
I think she's kind of in hiding right now too. Like,
oh, geez.
Yeah, I think she's left the Saudi royal family and she remarried an Emirati guy. And I don't think they live in the Middle East.
Yeah, you can tell how excited we were to interview you by how much we're stepping on each other to ask questions. By the way,
I really appreciate that. That makes me feel so good.
This is not the way it always is. Sometimes we're looking at each other like, will you please ask a question? I don't have anything.
Well, I got
Yeah. Oh,
I keep looking. Are you going to go? Or I'm going to go because I got more.
I got to know. Did you ever find yourself like in some of the situations that are in the book where Graham and Juliet are in truly life threat? Were you ever in a situation where you thought, "Fuck, this is it"?
Yeah. I mean, I met my first terrorist I ever met. I was very nervous. I found him. So he was a penetration of a terrorist network. And as targeting officer, part of my job was to identify individuals with access to information that we wanted, but then also individuals who I thought would be willing to work with us, so that they showed certain vulnerabilities that we could either utilize or work with them to trade, And so I identified this guy and sent my operational lead out to the field and flew out to this Middle Eastern country to meet with the case officer and to meet with the source. And I was there as kind of the subject matter expert to like assess his access and see, how, if we could really run him and do good things. And I knew he was willing to work with us. Well, from what I understood, he was willing to work for us, but I didn't know. You never know for sure until you get to that meeting what it's really going to be like, and if he's going to somehow smuggle something in and kill you.
Yeah.
So I was really nervous. And it was also like the first time I had to really like establish myself with a man like that, not only are they from this different culture, but they're from such an extremist mindset that you're like, how do I break through this? Like, how do we find common ground and to try to work to a common objective? But fortunately, I was with, two other brilliant officers, and we worked together, and we did some great things with this source. I mean, we really got some bad guys, and it was a very successful operation, but I didn't know going in there. And then another time, when I was always on you're always on edge when you're in the war zones, right? When you hear like the rockets and stuff. And like I was in Erbil, the northern part of Iraq at one point, and I was kind of staying by myself at this like house that was like removed from everything. Yeah, because
just an Airbnb in Iraq.
It wasn't an Airbnb, but so I was staying. Okay, so at the CIA base, they didn't have any more room. So this is another crazy story. So they didn't have any room in the CIA base. So they were like, you're going to stay up there so the special forces had a house that they stayed in. Like, you're going to stay up there with the special forces, but they go out in their night raids, right? So they're not there at night. So it was me in this gigantic house all by myself. Jeez. In the middle of Iraq. And I had like my Glock and everything with me, but you're
trying to sleep.
Like you're like, I can't sleep.
Oh my God.
So that was nerve-wracking.
Yeah. That's I'm getting a little anxiety just hearing about it. Like,
no,
I'm not built for that.
And nobody, okay.
There's sweat behind my knees.
So and the story behind you being up there, how did you feel being put up there as opposed to being
this story came out that I said, why'd you guys put me up here? Like, what's the deal? Like, I want to be a base with everybody else. And he said, well, you're TDY here, you're a young gal. All the young gals like to be up there with the special forces guys for extracurriculars.
Well, I guess
I was like, well, not me. I'm like engaged. I like actually like love this guy. Like, I'm just here to do my job. I don't want to fuck around. They're like, oh, okay. Well, maybe we could find you a room. Oh my God.
So you mentioned
what the hell?
you mentioned writing the sex scenes earlier, and I got to say you're a good writer of sex scenes. They were.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I've had some really good feedback about those.
Yeah, I was telling my girlfriend when I was reading it, I'm like, you're gonna have to read this because.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like to read. So I wrote what I like to read. Yeah. I like romance and adventure and scary shit, but then I also like sex too. So it's like, let's just bring it together. And when
you did a good job of making it real and not corny, it's hard. I know it's hard. Like sex scenes can be corny and,
and not too much. Yeah. You didn't continue on.
Yeah.
It was right. Just the right amount.
Right.
Good. When I feel like it was like a good break with all the action and stuff, like you need like a little bit of a break in there.
Yep.
But you don't want it to lull too much.
Well, and it helped build the bond because, she's going from one to another. So, not quickly. I mean, there's that 7-month break in there, but you're like, so it was good.
Moving on.
Yeah. It was good to build that bond between the characters. So,
exactly.
Did you feel you needed that to make her more human?
Yeah. Cause that's part of life, right? That's part of And honestly, it's a big part of intel operations in the sense that like that whole conversation she had about needing it to break free of like the pain and the chaos. And I think sometimes that's what
Pressure.
happens in these war zone situations is like, it's just, excuse me, it's too much to process that you really need to just like kind of back away and just, you know, be held or have a beer or whatever.
Yeah.
We're humans.
Human connection. Some
Absolutely.
human connection of some
Yeah, we're
yeah.
humans. We need to
Right.
slow down. We need to like, we need love. We need all these things.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
So as far as like how Hollywood portrays kind of the CIA and females in the CIA, I'm a big fan of the show Homeland. And
okay.
I'm curious, have you watched it and what is it?
Yeah.
How real is it? Kind of.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's not real.
Okay.
That was like a good motivator for me to get out there and write this book, honestly, because she like sleeps with her terrorist.
Yeah.
And like has his baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like
Dedicated to the job.
yeah. So it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
So I felt like I needed to like change that narrative, change that perspective.
Sure.
So yeah. I apologize, guys. I like have something in my throat.
That's
I need
right.
like water. So give me a second.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem.
And I never watched Homeland, so I can't compare, but I've heard I've heard great things that it was a great show. So other than that, is there any movie out there portraying that you're like, they got it?
Yeah. Zero Dark 30.
Oh yeah, great movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they did a great job. And honestly, it was so accurate that I was like, who told on people? Like I knew they did some polygraph interviews like after that movie came out, like trying to figure out like, wow.
Oh, somebody like spilled the beans. They were trying to figure out. Oh, really? That's interesting.
That is.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch that again.
Yeah, I know. I
do have it. So it is a great movie.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Yeah.
So can we have a little fun before we let you go?
Sure.
I just want to ask, I had one fun, and now that I heard you explain the CIA, you're going to be like, I don't know anything about that, but that's okay. I just are UFOs real?
Oh my gosh, what an interesting question. You know what's funny? So I told you when I first worked at CIA, I worked with these old dudes that like had been there since the 50s and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no Area 51, right? And they were like, they like kind of paused.
They're like, sure.
I don't know that there's an Area 51, but like I felt like the pause, I don't know. There might be something there.
Obviously, our government is starting to lean a little more towards
distraction.
That they are real, but yeah, right. Is it a distraction? Is it? I don't know, but
so do you feel like when they answered you back then, was it well, she's one of us, I can tell her, or she's too new yet to actually tell her?
Again, so we have to sign all these NDAs every time you're read into like a new security program. So like, say I'm moving from like China operations to Pakistan, Afghanistan operations. Well, I have to sign something that says I'm never going to tell anybody about what happened in that division when I'm at that division. So, I mean, it does happen. I mean, stories do get out.
Sure.
But people are pretty tight-lipped there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Especially the old school folks. They do not talk. You won't see them writing a tell-all book. I mean, they were really serious. I mean, people like their wives didn't know they were in. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of that has changed. But like, there were dudes that like, they did not tell their wives. Their kids didn't know.
They were traveling encyclepedia salesmen.
Yeah, like they had
they
had really good cover stories, and they just lived their cover and
never
I think that's the best traveling salesman. That's a big one.
Right. Yeah.
I gotta go. They need the encyclopedias.
Yeah.
So I know I saw a couple of your clips about how to tell someone lying. So if we did a fun clip of, if you asked us some questions, could you tell if we're lying? And then like we'll intentionally maybe lie on a few answers and not.
Okay. Oh, wait. Okay. So you want to test me?
Well, I did
shit. Sorry, guys. It's 8:00. I actually have another interview.
Okay.
At 8:00. So I'm sorry. I have to jump off, but this has been so fun.
Okay.
Well, thank you for
I really
thank you
appreciate
for joining
your
us.
time.
we love
Thank
the
you.
book, and we will make sure to promote the heck out of
Yes.
it. And
Good.
when you
Thank
write the
you.
second one, I hope we can talk you into coming back.
It wasn't to test you, it was to
Absolutely.
have fun. It wasn't to
Yes,
test.
no, I had a great time. Thank you. And I didn't feel uncomfortable drinking my wine. I had no idea you guys drank on this. And I'm so glad you did, because I could have my wine and feel
Absolutely.
comfortable about it.
All right. Thank you. Enjoy
So
the next interview.
If you, yeah,
Do you want to promote
I know,
it all
right?
before
I
you
have to
go?
go pour another glass of wine before I get on the next one. So
Do you want to promote it all before you go? Tell them where to
Yes,
find you.
yes, I do. Hold on. Ah, where'd you go? Where'd you go?
got it all figured. Yep, all planned out.
Okay. The Syndicate Spy is available everywhere. Buy it. It's great, right,
It's
guys?
great. It's
That is
great.
actually very good.
It's
Four
great, and
thumbs up.
you'll be so entertained, and you'll have so much fun. And go get it right now and leave a review. If you guys can leave a review, that would be awesome.
Will do.
Any specific place to leave a review that means the
Amazon.
most?
Go to
Amazon. Okay.
Amazon.
And find
Leave
you
it
on
there.
Instagram at former spy one.
Yes, former spy, the #1. I'll talk all about my CIA experiences, and ask me a question there, and I'll try to do my best to answer it.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Thanks
Brittany.
again for
We
joining
Thank you
us.
really
guys.
appreciate
Have a
it.
good night.
You as well.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. The tavern is closed for now, but we'd love to have you back for more fun next time. Seriously though, get your asses out of here.